Somewhere between the red canyons and the wide desert, where the wind brought dirt instead of rain, a man found something he did not look for. Caleb Stone walked to his water well that afternoon and saw her fallen against the wooden fence. A young woman, taller than any he had seen, her dark hair messy with dirt and blood. She wore animal skin and beads that showed she was an Apache woman. Her lips were dry and white. When he gave her the cup of water, she looked at him with eyes that held more doubt than thanks. But she drank. 3 times she drank, and when she was done, she stood tall and quiet and stared at him as if trying to remember his face. Then she turned and walked into the sandhills without saying a single word. Caleb watched her go away into the heat, thinking that was the end of it. He was wrong. Caleb Stone had lived on this land long enough to know when something was about to go bad. The ranch sat in a shallow valley where the grass grew thin, and the nearest neighbor was a 2-day ride south in the town of Dry Creek. He had chosen to be alone. No questions, no trouble, just cows, a few horses, and the kind of quiet that let a man forget what he had left. He wasn't running from anything special, just the noise of people who thought they knew better than they did. That evening, after the Apache girl had gone into the sandhills, Caleb did his work the same as always. He fed the horses, checked the fence where the wood was starting to rot, fixed a gate part that had been squeaking for weeks. But his mind kept going back to her, the way she had looked at him, not scared, not thankful, just aware, like she had been judging him and decided something he did not know. He told himself it did not matter. People pass through this area all the time. Explorers, wanderers, Apache people going to or from trade spots further west. She had gotten lost, gotten hurt, and now she was gone. That was that. But that night, lying on the small bed in his cabin, Caleb could not shake off the feeling that the air had changed. The horses were uneasy. He could hear them moving in the pen, their feet scraping dirt. Once the brown horse let out a sharp cry that cut through the dark. Caleb sat up listening. Nothing followed, just the wind pushing against the walls and the far-off call of something hunting in the sandhills. He lay back down, staring at the rough wooden roof. Tomorrow he would ride out to the north field and check on the herd. Tomorrow everything would go back to normal. He was still telling himself that when the sun came up. Caleb stepped outside at daybreak, pulling his straps over his shoulders and closing his eyes a bit against the bright light. The sky was clear, light blue fading into white at the edges. The valley stretched in front of him, thin grass and rock shapes covering the land. And then he saw them. At first he thought his eyes were playing tricks, shadows on the ridge line, but shadows did not move like that. Shadows did not sit on horseback, perfectly still, watching. He counted 10, then 20, then stopped counting. They were on the hill to the north, the side of the hill to the east, the slope that ran down to the Dry Creek bed on the west. Everywhere he looked, there were more Apache fighters on horseback, spears and guns easy to see even from this distance. They were not moving closer, they were not making noise, they were just there, all around his ranch like a tight rope. Caleb's hand moved without thinking toward the gun leaning against the doorframe, but he stopped. What good would one gun do against an army? He stepped into the yard, boots crunching on the hard dirt. The horses in the pen were pressed against the far fence, heads high, noses wide open. They could smell it too. Danger. Caleb looked at the hilltop again, trying to figure out what he was seeing. This was not a quick attack. Attackers move fast, hit hard, and go away. This was something else. This was planned. This was a message. But what message? His throat got tight. He thought about the girl, the water, the way she had looked at him before she left. And then, as if the thought called her, movement caught his eye. One rider left the group on the northern hill and began moving down the slope. Slow, calm, the horse picked its way down the rocky path with the kind of skill that came from a rider who had been born on a horse. Caleb did not move, did not reach for the gun, did not run. He just stood there in the middle of his yard, watching the rider come closer, wondering if this was the day he would finally run out of good luck. The rider stopped 50 feet away. A man older, his face lined with years of sun and wind and something harder, power. He wore no war paint, but he did not need it. Command came from him like heat from a stone. Behind him, more riders showed up, dozens of them on the sides, watching. Caleb swallowed hard. The silence went on thick and heavy. And then the old fighter raised one hand. Not to say hello, not to make a threat, just raised it, held it there, waiting for something Caleb could not name. His heart beat hard against his ribs. Whatever was about to happen, it had already been decided long before he woke up this morning. The question was, had he just saved his own life yesterday or signed his death paper? The hand stayed raised. Caleb's pulse hammered in his ears. He had heard stories about Apache fighters, how they could strip a man down to bone in minutes, how they fought with a fierceness that made grown soldiers weep. He had always thought those stories were too much. Now, standing in his own yard with an army watching him from every side, he was not so sure. The old fighter lowered his hand slowly. Then he got off his horse. His movements were careful, almost like a ceremony. He walked forward 10 steps and stopped, waiting. Caleb made himself breathe. This was a test. It had to be. If they wanted him dead, he would already be dead. They had all night to burn him out or put an arrow through his window. Instead, they had waited for sunrise, waited for him to see them. That meant something. He stepped forward, walking the same distance, 10 steps. Then he stopped, too. They stood facing each other across 50 feet of dusty ground. The warrior's face was like old leather, his eyes black and hard to read. Gray showed in his long hair. He carried no weapon in his hands, but a knife hung at his belt, and a gun was strapped to his horse. Caleb kept his hands where they could be seen at his sides, showing no threat. He did not speak, did not know what to say even if he tried. The language wall was complete. For a long moment, nothing happened. The warriors on the hills stayed still as stone. The horses moved their weight. A hawk flew above, not knowing of the tension below. Then the old fighter raised his hand again, but this time he pointed. Not at Caleb, at the well. Caleb's stomach dropped. The well, the water, the girl. The warrior lowered his hand and made a sign, pouring water, drinking. The meaning was clear. Caleb nodded slowly. Yes, he had given water to someone. The girl. Yesterday. The warrior's face did not change, but something shifted in how he stood. He turned his head a bit and called out something in his own language. Sharp, strong movement went through the warriors. They made a space on the eastern hill, making a gap, and through that gap, one rider appeared. Caleb's breath stopped. It was her, the girl from yesterday, but she looked different now. Her hair was braided and decorated with beads. She wore clean animal skin and a necklace of blue and silver. She sat straight on a painted horse, and even from this distance, her height was amazing. She had to be close to 6 feet tall, maybe more. No wonder the title said giant. She stood out even among the warriors. She rode down the slope with the same calm grace as the old warrior. When she reached the valley floor, she did not stop far away like he had. She rode straight to him, stopped 10 feet away, close enough that Caleb could see her face clearly. She looked at him with the same judging look as before. Then she spoke. Her English was slow, but clear. "You give water." It was not a question. It was a statement, a way of saying thanks. Caleb nodded. Yes. She looked at the old warrior, then back at Caleb. "You not know who?" Again, not a question. Caleb shook his head. "No, you were hurt, needed help." Something quick showed in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. She turned to the old warrior and spoke fast in his language. He listened without feeling, then answered with one word. The girl turned back to Caleb. "My father say you brave, or fool." Caleb's throat went dry. Father. The old warrior was her father, which meant he was the head man, which meant this girl was not just any Apache. She was the daughter of the man who led 300 warriors. "I didn't know," Caleb said quietly. "That why you live," she replied. Her tone was flat, just stating facts. "Man who know, he try get paid. You give water because thirsty person need water. That different." The old warrior spoke again, longer this time. The girl listened, then put it into English. "My father say I do test. Walk alone 3 days. No food, no water. Prove strong, prove ready." She stopped. "I fall, hit head, lose path. Your water save life." Caleb felt the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on him. "I'm glad you're all right." She tilted her head a little, studying him. You not afraid?" "I'm very scared," admitted Caleb, "but shooting or running won't change anything. So I'm standing here." For the first time, something almost like fun touched her face. She spoke to her father again. He nodded once, then turned and walked back to his horse. The girl looked at Caleb one more time. "We watch, see if you speak truth or lie. See if you tell other white men where we are. See if you good or bad." "How long?" asked Caleb. She did not answer. She just turned her horse and rode back up the slope. The old warrior got on his horse and followed. Caleb stood in his yards. The sun climbed higher. The warriors did not leave. They settled into places on the hills, becoming part of the land, watching. He was a prisoner in his own home, and he had no idea how long the time would last. 3 days passed. The warriors stayed on the hills like statues made of stone. They changed places, but never left. Smoke from their fires went up into the sky each evening. Caleb tried to do his work, but everything felt wrong. He fed the horses under watchful eyes. He fixed fence posts, knowing every move was being watched. He took water from the well, the same well where he had found the girl, and wondered if they were counting each bucket he pulled up. Sleep came in small bits. Every sound outside woke him up fast. The horses sensed his worry and grew nervous. The brown horse kicked at the fence until Caleb had to move him to a separate small pen. On the 4th morning, Caleb woke to find something had changed. One of the warriors had come down from the hill during the night and left something by his door, a bag wrapped in hide. Inside, he found dried meat and a clay jar of water. He stared at it, trying to figure out the message. Were they giving him food because they respected him, or were they making sure he stayed alive long enough to finish their test? Either way, he ate the meat. It was tough and very salty, but it was food. His own food was running low, and he could not exactly ride to town with an army blocking every road out of the valley. By the 5th day, being alone was making him tired. He had always liked being alone, but this was different. This was being watched every second he was awake. He started talking to the horses just to hear a voice, even if it was his own. On the 6th day, the girl came back. She rode down alone this time, without her father. She stopped at the same spot as before, 10 feet from where Caleb stood in the yard. "You still here?" she said. "Didn't have much choice," Caleb replied. She got off her horse and walked closer. Up close, her height was even more amazing. She stood almost as tall as him, and Caleb was not a small man. Her eyes were sharp, smart. She studied him like she was reading a map. "You could run," she said. "At night, take horse, try and get killed before I made it a mile," Caleb said. "No thanks." "You smart," she said. It sounded like a good word, but her tone was simple. "Most white men run, get caught, get killed. You stay, wait." "What else can I do?" She did not answer right away. Instead, she walked to the well and looked down into it. "Deep," she said. "Deep enough," Caleb agreed. "Doesn't run dry even in summer." "That why you live here?" "Good water? That's one reason." She turned back to him. "My people need water too. This land used to be ours. Now white men build fences, dig wells, take what was free." Caleb felt the weight of that statement. He had bought this land by the law written by men who had never asked the Apache if they agreed. "I don't want trouble," he said carefully. "Trouble already here," she replied. "Question is what you do with it." Before Caleb could answer, a sound cut through the morning air. A gunshot, far away but easy to hear. Then another, then a third. The girl's head snapped toward the eastern hill. The warriors were moving, changing places. More shots echoed across the valley, coming from somewhere beyond the sand hills. The girl spoke fast in her language, calling out to the nearest warriors. One of them shouted back. Her face got hard. She turned to Caleb. White men coming, many with guns. Caleb's blood went cold. "How many?" 20, maybe more. They hunt." She looked at him, and for the first time he saw something other than simple quiet in her eyes. It might have been thinking, or it might have been blame. "They hunt us." The gunshots were getting closer. Whoever was out there, they were moving fast, and they were headed straight for the valley. The girl got on her horse in one smooth move. They find you with us, they kill you too. They think you enemy. Where are you going? She did not answer. She just kicked her horse to move and rode hard for the hill. The warriors were already pulling back, going away into the hills like smoke. Caleb stood alone in his yard as the sound of horses coming closer grew louder. Men's voices shouting, happy, the kind of happiness that came from men who thought they had caught their prey. He had maybe 5 minutes before they arrived. 5 minutes to decide what he was going to say when a group of armed settlers found him standing in a valley that 300 Apache warriors had just left, and he had no idea which side he was supposed to be on. They came fast down the eastern path like a storm breaking over the hills. Caleb counted 15 riders, maybe more behind them. They wore the rough clothes of settlers, canvas pants, worn shirts, wide hats stained with sweat and dirt. Every man carried a gun. Some had smaller guns at their sides. They rode hard, faces red with the kind of heat that came from excitement and anger mixed together. The lead rider saw Caleb standing in his yard and raised a hand to slow the group. They stopped 30 yards from the cabin, horses breathing hard, white foam on their necks. "You alone here?" the lead rider called out. He was a big man with a thick beard and eyes that looked over the valley all the time, looking for movement. "Just me," Caleb said. He kept his voice steady, his hands visible. "You see any Apache come through here?" Another rider pushed forward, younger, with a gun already ready and resting across his saddle. "We've been following a war party. Saw smoke signals yesterday. Trail led straight to this valley." Caleb's mind raced. He could lie, tell them the Apache had passed through and moved on. But these men were not stupid. They had seen the tracks, the camp spots, the signs of 300 warriors staying for days of watching. "I've seen signs," Caleb said carefully, "but they're gone now." The bearded man looked closely at him. "Gone where?" "North, I think. Heard horses moving out about 20 minutes ago." It wasn't fully a lie. The warriors had pulled back into the hills, but north was a guess, and he knew it. The young rider with the gun looked suspicious. "You have a lot of guts living out here alone." "Apache land. It's my land," Caleb said. "Bought and paid for." "Apache don't care about paper and names," the bearded man said. He got off his horse and walked closer. "You're lucky they haven't killed you already." "Maybe I'm not worth killing," Caleb replied. The man laughed, but it was a harsh sound. "We're part of a volunteer group, been hunting a group that attacked a settlement 2 weeks south in the Little River area, burned 3 homes, killed a family." He spat into the dirt. "We plan to make them pay." Caleb's stomach tightened. "You sure it was Apache?" "Tracks don't lie," the young rider said. "War party came through. We followed him here." The bearded man studied Caleb's face. "You seem too calm for a man who just had bad guys camped on his doorstep." "Worrying doesn't help anything," Caleb said. "You hiding something?" The young rider's hand grabbed his gun tighter. "Just trying to stay alive," Caleb said. "Same as anyone." The bearded man walked past him toward the cabin. "Mind if we look around, get some water for the horses?" Caleb didn't have much choice. "Help yourself." The men got off their horses and spread out. Some led horses to the water place. Others walked to the outside of the cabin, checking for tracks, for signs. The young rider stayed on his horse, watching Caleb with open dislike. "You got food in there?" the bearded man asked, nodding toward the cabin. "Enough to get by." "We could use some. Been riding for 3 days straight. Pay you fairly?" Caleb nodded slowly. "I'll see what I have." He walked toward the cabin with the bearded man following. As they reached the door, Caleb saw movement on the hill to the west. Just a flash, a shape that could have been a rock or a warrior watching from cover. The Apache had not left. They had just pulled back far enough to avoid the fight. They were still out there, still watching, and if these men found them, the valley was going to run red. The bearded man stepped inside the cabin. Caleb followed, his mind working through what could happen. He could tell them the truth, that the Apache were not attackers, that they had been here for days without doing harm. But would they believe him? Or would they think he had been turned, become a friend to the Apache? "You got coffee?" the bearded man asked, looking at the shelves. "Some," Caleb said. "Good. We'll take whatever you can share." He turned to face Caleb directly. and you're going to tell us exactly where those Apache went." It was not a question. It was a command. Caleb looked at the man's hard eyes and knew the moment had come. He could point north and send them chasing shadows. He could point west and lead them into a trap. Or he could tell them the truth and risk being shot as a traitor to his own people. Outside, one of the men shouted, "Found fresh tracks, lots of 'em. They ain't far." The bearded man's face changed. His hand went to his small gun. "How long they been gone?" Caleb met his eyes. "Not long enough." The bearded man drew his small gun and stepped outside. Caleb followed, heart pounding. The men were gathering near the eastern fence, where the ground was soft enough to hold prints. Clear as day, dozens of unshod horses moving in organized lines. "They were here," one man said, kneeling to look at the tracks. "Been here for days by the look of it." The young rider turned his gun toward Caleb. "You lied. They didn't just pass through. They were camped here." "I said I saw signs," Caleb replied, keeping his voice calm. "I didn't say they attacked me." "Why the hell not?" the bearded man demanded. "You're a white settler on their land. Why would they let you live?" Caleb had one chance to handle this right. One chance to keep these men from riding into the hills and starting a killing. "Maybe because I didn't give them a reason to kill me." "You like them?" The young rider's voice was sharp with blame. "I like staying alive," Caleb said. "They had 300 warriors on those hills. If they wanted me dead, I'd be dead. They let me be, so I let them be." 300? The bearded man's face went white. "You're saying 300 Apache were all around this ranch for 6 days," Caleb said, "and not one of them fired a shot." The men looked at each other. The math was clear. 15 guns against 300 warriors wasn't brave. It was suicide. "Then why were they here?" another man asked. "War parties don't just camp out for no reason." Caleb chose his words carefully. "I helped someone, one of theirs, gave her water when she needed it. They came to see what kind of man I was." "Her?" The young rider's eyes got small. "You helped an Apache woman?" The word made Caleb's jaw tighten, but he did not get angry. "I helped a person who was hurt and thirsty. Same as I'd help any of you. And they thanked you by surrounding your ranch?" The bearded man did not sound sure. "They were watching, making sure I wasn't going to run to the nearest town like Dry Creek and bring back an army." Caleb pointed at the men. "Looks like they were right to worry." The bearded man put away his small gun, but kept his hand near it. "We got families burned out of their homes, children killed. You expect us to just let that go?" "I expect you to be sure you're hunting the right people," Caleb said. "The ones who were here didn't attack anyone. They were testing me." "Testing you for what?" Before Caleb could answer, a sound carried across the valley. A call, high and piercing. Not human, not animal, something in between. A sign. Every man froze. The horses moved quickly with fear. The call came again, bouncing off the canyon walls, and this time it was answered. From the north hill, then the south, then the west, the valley filled with sound, surrounding them. "They're still here," the young rider whispered. His gun shook in his hands. The bearded man looked at the hills. Nothing visible, just rock and scrub and shadow, but the calls kept coming, closer now and tightening like a rope. "Get on your horses," he ordered. "We're leaving now." "We came here to fight," one man argued. "We came here to fight attackers, not 300 warriors on their own ground." The bearded man swung onto his horse. "Move!" The men ran to get on their horses. The young rider kept his gun pointed at the hills, backing towards his horse. In seconds, they were all on their horses, horses moving with fear. The bearded man looked down at Caleb. "You're a fool if you stay here." "Maybe, but it's still my home." "Won't be a home when they burn it." The man kicked his horse to move. "Let's go." They rode out fast, heading south the way they had come. The loud sound of hooves faded quickly, swallowed by the desert wind. Caleb stood alone in his yard. The calls stopped. Silence settled over the valley like a dust after a storm. Then movement on the hill. The girl appeared first, riding down on her painted horse. Behind her, her father. Behind him, a dozen warriors. They rode down slowly, with purpose. When they reached the valley floor, the girl got off her horse and walked to Caleb. Her face was hard to read. "You not tell them where we are," she said. "No." "You could. They won't kill us. You could make them happy." "I don't want anyone killed," Caleb said. She studied him for a long moment. Then she turned and spoke to her father in his language. The old chief listened, then looked at Caleb with those black, judging eyes. He said something short, sharp, final. The girl translated, "My father say test is over. You pass." Caleb felt something let go in his chest. Relief, maybe, or tiredness. What happens now? The girl's face changed. Not quite a smile, but close. "Now we talk." The chief got off his horse and walked toward Caleb's cabin without asking. It was not anger. It was simply the way of a man who had spent his life getting respect without needing to ask for it. The girl followed, and Caleb walked behind, feeling strangely like a visitor in his own home. Inside, the chief stood in the middle of the small room, looking at the simple furniture, the shelves of food, the single window that faced west. He said something to his daughter. "He say you live simple," she translated, "like fighter, no extra things." Caleb wasn't sure if that was a compliment or just an observation. "I don't need much." The chief pulled out a chair from the table and sat. He made a sign for Caleb to do the same. The girl stayed standing, placed where she could see both men and the door. "My name," she said, telling him properly for the first time. "Leona means beautiful in our language. White men make fun because I am tall, but my father say I am beautiful like mountain, strong, tall, cannot be moved." "It's a good name," Caleb said. He looked at the chief. "And your father?" "His name not for you to say," Leona replied. Her tone was not angry, just stating fact. "He is chief. That is enough." The chief spoke, his voice low and calm. Leona translated in parts, letting him finish his thoughts before putting them into English. "You give water to me when I fall. You not ask for payment. You not ask for a favor. You not try to touch me or keep me. You give what I need and let me go." She stopped as her father continued. "This not normal for white men. They take, they demand, they hurt. But you just give." Caleb got the chief's eyes. "She needed help, that's all." "My father say his test was hard test. 6 days watching, 6 days waiting to see if you run to town, if you tell soldiers where we camp, if you sell information for gold or safety." Leona's voice was steady, calm. "You do none of these things. Men come with guns looking for us. You could tell them, make them happy, make them think you are good white man who helps kill Apache." "I don't want to kill anyone," Caleb said. "But you also not want die," the chief said in English. The single word carried weight. Then he continued in his language, and Leona translated. "Most men would not. Most men see Apache girl and think danger, think problem, think chance to gain. You see thirsty person. That is difference." The chief reached into a leather bag at his belt and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He set it on the table and unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a necklace. Detailed beadwork on leather with a special pattern. Blue and white beads arranged in a specific design. "This mark of protection," Leona explained. "You wear this. My people know you are friend. They will not harm you. They will not take from you. You are under protection of our tribe." Caleb stared at the necklace. "I don't understand. Why?" "Because you show honor when you not have to," Leona said. "Because you risk your life to not give us away. Because my father see in you something rare. White men who understand that land belongs to all, that water is for thirsty, that human being is human being." The chief spoke again, longer this time, stressing certain words. Leona listened carefully before translating. "My father say, this land wants all Apache land, water flow free, game run free. Then white men come with paper that say they own what cannot be owned. They put up fences, they dig wells. They say, "This is mine, that is yours. You cannot pass here." She stopped. "But you are different. You have fence, yes. You have well, yes. But when person need water, you give. You do not ask if person is Apache or white, if person is Christian or not. You just give water to thirsty person." "Anyone would do the same," Caleb said. "No," the chief said in English. The single word carried weight. Then he continued in his language, and Leona translated. "Most men would not. Most men see Apache girl and think danger, think problem, think chance. You see thirsty person. That is difference." The chief stood and pushed the necklace across the table toward Caleb. "You take, you wear, you are protected." Caleb picked up the necklace. The beadwork was detailed, beautiful. The leather was soft and well done. "What does this mean for me? For my ranch?" Leona and her father looked at each other. Then she spoke without waiting for translation. "It mean you can live in peace. My people will not trouble you. We will watch over your land when you are gone. If other Apache come through, we tell them you are friend." She paused. "But there is more." Caleb waited. "Those white men will come back," she said. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they will come. They want to fight Apache. They want payback for things they think we do." Her face got hard. "If you wear this, if they see it, they will think you are traitor. They will not understand. They will want hurt you too." The chief spoke one final time, short, strong. "My father say, choose carefully. Protection from us mean danger from them. You cannot have both." Caleb held the necklace in his hands, feeling the weight of the choice. It was not just a piece of beadwork. It was a statement, a line drawn in the dirt that he would have to stand on one side of or the other. He thought about the men who had just left, the bearded man's hard eyes, the young rider's doubt. If they came back and found him wearing Apache symbols, they would shoot first and ask questions later. He would be called a turncoat, a traitor to his own people. But what did that mean, really, his own people? White settlers who had taken land by force and called it legal? Men who hunted human beings like animals and called it justice? Were those his people just because they had the same skin color? He looked at Leona. She stood tall and straight, waiting for his answer with the patience of someone who had already accepted whatever choice he made. She had been dying of thirst, and he had given her water. That simple, that human. And now 300 warriors would leave him in peace because of it. Or he could refuse the necklace, keep his distance, try to stay neutral in a land where being neutral was becoming impossible, live alone, trust no one, and hope both sides left him alone. That had been his plan when he came here, being alone, peace through distance. But the world had found him anyway, forced him to choose. Caleb put the necklace over his head. The beadwork settled against his chest, cool against his skin. "I choose to live with honor, same as I've been trying to do all along." The chief's face did not change, but something shifted in his posture. Respect, maybe, or knowing. He stood and put one hand briefly on Caleb's shoulder, a sign that needed no translation. Leona spoke to her father in his language. He nodded and replied. She turned back to Caleb. "My father say you are brave or stupid, maybe both." This time she almost smiled. "He also say stupid brave men sometimes become famous stories." "I'm not looking to be a famous story," Caleb said. "I just want to live in peace." "Peace take more guts than war," Leona said. "Anybody can fight. Take special person to choose not fight when everyone else want blood." The chief moved toward the door. Leona followed but stopped at the doorway. "You have questions?" she asked. "A lot of them," Caleb admitted, "but I guess they can wait." "Ask one," she said, "while my father is here, while words still mean something, before world get hard again." Caleb thought for a moment. "That test you were doing, the 3 days alone with no food or water, did you pass?" Leona's face was hard to read. "I survive, that is pass, but not the way I plan. I fall." "And now?" Caleb asked. Leona looked past him, through the small cabin window to the dry hills. Her eyes were far away. Now I pass the test of the mountain. Next, I pass the test of the people. What is that? My father is old, Leona said simply. Soon he will not lead. The tribe must follow someone strong, someone smart, someone who is honest and who can see the world not just from the mountain, but from the valley. She looked back at Caleb. I showed them I could survive the land. Now I must show them I can survive the white man. And what happens if you fail? If I fail, my brothers fight for the place, Leona said simply, and the tribe breaks apart, and the white men kill us all, slowly, one piece of land at a time. The chief spoke from the doorway. Leona listened and nodded. My father says you have to come with us now. Caleb's heart sank. Come with you where? To the main camp, Leona said. You have necklace. You are protected, but you cannot stay here. If those men come back and see you alive, they will bring soldiers. You are dangerous here. You are proof that we can live in peace. The white men do not want that proof to live. But my place, my things, my horses. Horses follow. Things can wait. If you stay, you die. If you come, you live. And maybe you can help me pass the last test. Caleb looked around his small cabin. The life he had built, the quiet he had found. It was all over. The world had come to his door and given him a choice between a clean death and a messy, dangerous new life. He looked at the necklace on his chest. He looked at the giant Apache woman who stood tall enough to look him in the eye. All right, Caleb said, I'll come, but I don't know anything about fighting or being a chief. Leona smiled fully this time. It changed her face entirely, making her look like a girl instead of a warrior. My father say he have enough fighters. He needs someone who can talk to ghosts. Ghosts? White men, Leona said. They take land and life, but they leave ghosts everywhere. You are one of them. You understand them. You are safe now, Caleb Stone. You walk with us. You walk with the mountain. We go. She turned and left the cabin, her father already waiting on his horse outside. Caleb followed, pulling the door shut behind him. He did not lock it. He didn't need to. He led the brown horse out of the pen and walked with the Apache warriors toward the sandhills, leaving his ranch and his old life behind for a future that was as wide and as dangerous as the wide desert itself. That was enough. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale from the frontier, where courage and choices shape destinies in unexpected ways. Don't forget to subscribe. Your support means the world to us.